how do I tell my sister that I don't think her husband is right for her?
Oof. That is some thin ice, Sister Veronica.
Yes.
So tell me what's going on.
So I'll give you a little backstory. My sister has been with her husband since high school. I've known him for quite some time as well. We were all friends in high school and then beyond. But whenever they got engaged and then married, I felt like his true colors started to come out.
What does that mean?
So he started, in my opinion, to get really manipulative emotionally with my sister. Just different things that she would want. He would always find some way to say that, like convince her that she didn't want them. A small example in the past was she wanted this certain type of dog that she had growing up. And he said, no, we can't have a dog right now. We don't have a big enough house. And then turned around and convinced her to get a Mastiff, which is a really large dog. And that's just a little thing. But things like that over the years have piled up. And I feel like it's just getting worse and worse and worse.
Tell me about your sister.
So, she's a really kind and caring person. She is the oldest of the three of us. So she's got that big sister energy about her. She has always gone to bat for me and my younger sister. She's also been like a guiding light for us, but her friends as well. She works as a nurse. She's very caring, and she's a very devoted mother to her two children. And I feel like she stretches herself thin for everyone in her life and doesn't always get a lot in return, which is hard to see.
Yes, and that's your entry point.
Mm-hmm.
I would be very careful, unless you are witnessing violence or you're witnessing abuse. Then, of course, I'm going to throw myself right in the middle of it to protect people, right? Mm-hmm. If there's just a continued, this guy sucks, he's just lame, I don't like him, I want people to be careful. I want you to be careful about talking about how bad he is. Because here's the thing. If she stays with him, then you have driven a wedge between you two.
Yes.
And you're making her choose between this guy and her sister. Don't put her in that situation. The approach is, hey, I think you're worth more than the life you have right now. And I don't know if you can see it. And you're smart and wise and beautiful. And maybe you're choosing this, but as your little sister, I just want you to tell you I love you. And I see so much more. Like, well, what do you mean? And then you can begin to lay out, like, here's what I think you're worth.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's going to have to make some grown-up choices on her own. So let me ask you, what's your ultimate goal for like a big conversation? You want her to leave him?
See, I've debated this for quite some time.
Mm-hmm. Or do you just want to be on record? Like, what would your goal of the conversation be?
I guess just for her to realize that the treatment that she's been putting up with for quite some time isn't necessarily normal or all that she could have in a relationship.
Do you think that she doesn't know that?
I think she tells herself that she is fine. But there was an incident last year where it was the first time she had opened up to me about being upset with her husband. She unfortunately lost a baby at 20 weeks pregnant. And yeah, it was really a challenging time for my whole family, especially just to see just that level of loss. And she, took some time off, of course, for work, and her husband did as well. And she called me very upset one day and said that he had been staying up all night playing video games and then sleeping all day and not being present with her. And she said, this is just how it always is. And that was the first time I had ever heard her speak ill against him. Mm-hmm. And I tried to be fair at that time because she was going through a lot. I didn't want to overload her with all of my feelings towards her husband. But I said, that's not what you need right now from a partner. You need more support than this whenever you're going through something this huge. And she agreed, and I thought maybe that would be the catalyst for some change to happen. But then things went right back to the way they always are in their relationship. And I do recognize I'm not there all the time.
Sure.
And I have seen really good qualities in him, but it just seems like there's more and more and more disappointment that my sister faces. And it's really, really hard to watch.
And maybe the bravest thing you can do is not throw a grenade in their living room. Maybe the bravest thing you can do is to put up your own boundaries. For instance, I see this and I'm going to choose to not be around him anymore. And I know that's hard for both of us. But when I think back to the way my husband treats me through these things, that's the kind of man I want to be around. And I can't be around your husband when he's ignoring you and playing video games. I can't be around him when he's making jokes and swearing. I don't know what he does around you guys. Part of it sounds like a guy who's grown into a man who doesn't have any tools.
Mm-hmm.
I hear a lot. I don't know many young husbands who know how to grieve the loss of a pregnancy.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
And some go to work like crazy, and some play video games and crash and sleep. That's called in some places called depression.
Mm-hmm.
Some get in fights, right? And some have a roadmap for how to deal with a grieving partner because of something happened in their life growing up or something, right? Or they have some friends who reach out and say, hey, here's what has to happen next. And so some of it might be he's just immature and doesn't have a good roadmap. And that's why I always want to be careful, because if your sister is struggling and she has never said, hey, here's what I need right now, she's got to take some ownership of that too. And maybe she is like being very clear and he's like, yeah, I don't really care about that. And that's why, like I say, throwing a grenade in the middle of this, if he's just kind of a bum or just kind of a man-child or just kind of like he doesn't know, maybe it's you telling your sister, I feel like I want to talk to him. I mean, I'm just throwing things out there. I just know, don't do that. I take that back. Don't do that. I guess I want you to go back to what your goals are. If your goal is to break up the marriage, or your goal is to plant some seeds so that she breaks up this marriage, I would tell you to be very cautious about that.
Yeah.
If your goal is I want to make sure I'm heard, knock your lights out, but every time that's somebody's goal, that always comes with consequences. And if you're okay with the consequences, cool.
Mm-hmm.
If your goal is for your sister to recognize that she is worth more than the life she's living right now, then that's a totally different conversation. That's less about how much your husband is leaving things to be desired, and it's more about teaching her how to advocate for herself, teaching her how to speak up, teaching her that she doesn't have to work so much, helping her with budgets, like things like that have some real world, what's the right word? Confidence building tools, right?
Yeah.
So
I feel like that would be the better avenue to go down.
I think so. And maybe you sit down and say, hey, I can't get that conversation we had in a year ago. I can't get it out of my mind. And I feel like our whole life, you as big sister had that maternal energy. You took care of us. And I just need to flip it around. And I'm feeling a need to take care of you because I'm watching my big sister kind of wither away. And you were a hilarious, fun, powerful, strong, whatever adjectives describe her. But I'm just kind of watching the life drain out of you. And I want you to know I see you. And I see you kind of just slowly, and I think your husband's a goof. I think he's a nerd. I think whatever word you want to use. I don't care. You're talking to your sister. You can say what you want. But how can I love you in this season? And I think that's just a place to start. And for everybody listening, just know there's a before and after. You sit down and say, I think your husband or wife is the worst. I think you should leave them. I think they shouldn't have done what they did. I think you deserve this and this, and they can't provide that. Just know there's a before and after, because if they stay, they will always know what you said about their spouse. If they choose to heal things inside their home, you're not there every day. Like you mentioned, like Veronica just mentioned, you're not there every day. So you're on the outside of that coming together, and you'll always be on the outside of that coming together. So unless there is I need to blow this thing up right now because somebody's getting hurt, there's infidelity and we know about it and we're just calling it, just be careful before you throw that grenade, because that blast radius usually gets everybody. Thank you for the call, Veronica. Just ask yourself, what is my goal of this conversation? To blow up a marriage or to help my sister have a better life? And sometimes the answer to those two things are radically different.